Welcome to today's episode of the DollarsAndSense Podcast. And if this is your first time listening in, this is where we break down some of the most interesting finance topics in Singapore. And for today's episode, we will be ranking what we believe are the biggest game changer from the Singapore Budget 2025. And Dinesh, I know you were covering the budget yesterday, and not just listening to the speech, but even after the speech, you were spending a lot of time looking through all the infographics and the annex documents just to make sure you get your figures right and all the schemes correct, right? So I think by now you should have a pretty deep understanding of all these key announcements from yesterday's budget.
Yeah, I think the budgets are always a big event for Dollars and Cents. We try to cover it as well as possible. So hopefully you guys go to our website and read that article as well.
Right. So in case you didn't already know what was announced in yesterday's budget, we have the usual familiar measures like your CDC vouchers. We get more CDC vouchers, EduSave rebates for people in HDB households, and enhancements to housing and CPF policies, as well as improvements to some of the social support schemes for lower income families. And then we also saw some new initiatives like the SG60 package, as well as a new large family schemes as well. So much to unpack. But rather than just recap everything, which you can also read on our website, I want to do something different today. So Dinesh, I'm going to get you to rank your top 3 game changer from the Singapore Budget 2025. And if possible, with a little bit of a tricky twist here, it would be good if you can highlight some of the most under the radar announcements from the budget, right? So in other words, which policy do you think are important, but maybe not getting the attention that they deserve, or maybe not even being mentioned enough during the budget speech itself? I will let you choose the first, first game changer you got. Each of us will choose 3. You go first, then my turn. You go after that again.
I mean, we haven't discussed this, so I hope we don't overlap. But so my first one came right at the end or towards the end of the budget speech. One of the biggest takeaway for me was when PM Lawrence Wong, he said that, we will end FY 2024.
And 2025.
Yeah. And 2025 with a surplus, right?
Right.
So I was quite surprised. So immediately I went to the budget website. I saw, hey, what was the estimate for FY 2024 when it was first came out, right? Last year, right? So I saw that, there was projected to be a very small surplus, of less than 1 billion. I think it was 0.78 billion that I'm seeing right now. So I was surprised when he mentioned that, hey, we'll have a $6.4 billion surplus. And then he said, hey, FY 2025, we will also project now an estimated $6.8 billion surplus. So I was quite surprised that, we will have so much firepower. I think it's never a bad thing, obviously, but I thought, this was very positive. Obviously, it's not a scheme or announcement, but it's positive for Singapore because we have now this, whatever you want to call it, right? This firepower to tackle maybe unexpected challenges or, tackle new initiatives that we want to progress Singapore for. And it's positive given that, I also tried to look at the number a little bit more in detail. So I may not have captured everything, but the one thing that, came up to me was the expenditure was also $1.2 billion higher than the initial estimate. So we actually spent a little bit more than we estimate.
For 2024.
For 2024, FY 2024, that's the estimate for now still. But even then, with the extra expenditure, the surplus still more than covers it, right? Yeah. So that was a big positive for me, and one of the biggest, maybe, I don't know whether it surprised you, but one of the biggest takeaway for me.
No, look, I agree with you because I got some feedback from some people who, I was just asking, and I think a lot of people were surprised by the surplus that was announced by the Prime Minister during the Budget 2025 speech because, after hearing all the goodies, the benefits announcement, which we'll get to later on, you kind of thought like, okay, it will be good if it's break-even, a balanced budget. So for him to actually say that there is a surplus of, about $6 billion, $6.4 billion for FY 2024, this is estimated, but, they are projecting it probably quite accurate.
Yeah.
And also a similar fiscal position for 2025, $6.8 billion. It's quite surprising. I think it then leads naturally to the next question that a lot of people are asking, which is that did we collect too much taxes, right? So I think there is some people thinking like, see, GST, maybe it didn't need to increase so quickly because we have these surpluses anyway. But I think the Prime Minister also mentioned in his speech that the corporate income tax collection were...
Yeah, I think that was the main contribution rather than GST.
Yeah.
Actually, they already projected the increase in GST revenue, but that should be offsetting other things that they already accounted for. So he mentioned, right, that the main one was because of corporate income tax.
Yeah, that's quite unexpected, as it was mentioned in the speech, that corporate income tax is now the single largest contributor to total revenue, which is larger than the net investment return contribution at NIRC, which was the biggest contributor in previous years.
Yeah, and I think this is quite a big positive because, we have a recent memory of, spending hundreds of billions in, the pandemic year. So it's quite nice, hey, we are in a very strong fiscal position. Maybe we can, offset some of the losses or some of the spending in the past years. Or even if not, I'm sure spending will go up in future years because, Singapore is aging population. We are doubling down on reskilling our entire workforce, actually. Maybe we'll come to it in one of our next few pointers. But there are a lot of spending that is going to be upcoming, and maybe this puts us in a good fiscal position.
I think it's a little bit like doing budgeting for your family, right? So sometimes you get an unexpected year-end bonus. Maybe instead of the usual 13 months, you get 3 months extra, right? And, you don't necessarily, you got to save for a rainy day, right? So you get a 3 months bonus instead of 1 month bonus. Do you really need to go out there and spend the additional 2 months worth of salary?
Yeah.
Or is it better to, hey, you know what? It's okay since we have this additional amount and didn't expect to even have. We will keep it for a rainy day as well.
You're not going to question, hey, should we have worked less hard? No, you're not going to question that. Similarly, you're not going to just blow the money on something.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so that's your first one, a surplus budget. So that's Dinesh first game changer. I'll go next. I think it's not something that it's going to come as a huge surprise, but let me explain why I think it's a game changer.
Okay.
And that's the large family scheme.
Okay.
Right. So I know that for most of you, especially those of you who already have 3 or more kids, or you're thinking of your third child, you already probably read through this.
Yep.
For a start, let me just recap what the large family schemes
I mean, we didn't discuss this, but I have a full recap here as well. So go ahead.
I'll go. You just let me know if I miss out on anything. So obviously, the first thing is that the government is increasing the CDA first step grant of currently, when any newborn baby in Singapore, they get as of yesterday, $5,000 for the children.
Yes.
Right. This goes straight to the CDA. It's called the CDA first step grant. Right. From 18th Feb onwards, from the budget 2025 onwards, this will increase to $10,000 for the third and subsequent children, right? So that's the first change the first feature of the large family scheme. The second one is the Medisave grant, $5,000 large family Medisave grant. I believe this goes to the mother's Medisave account for the third and subsequent children, right? And then last but not least, $1,000 annually in terms of LifeSG credits from the year an eligible child. That means your third child onwards is between the age of 1 to 6. So this is the large family scheme, and I think most of us who already have three children or more, we are already calculating, hey, how much are we getting?
Yeah.
Right. Or if you're expecting, later this year, firstly, congratulations, you got the right timing, because if you have your third child, you're going to get all this additional incentive. But I think there is 2 things I want to point out, which I think is really game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is, I think it's a recognition, or at least even a definition from the government's point of view, that they really want to encourage families to have 3 or more children. Because I remember back then when we were in primary school, I have a friend, and he was the 4th child in his family. And do you know he didn't even have his EduSave account?
Yeah, some of our friends who were
4th child,
they didn't get certain benefits.
They don't have EduSave.
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize it. But there was a point in time where it was almost like discouraged, right? Yeah. There is a cap in terms of how much benefit your kids will have if you have enough. I think at that point it was 4 more children. And I think this is kind of like a reversal, right? So, now they're saying 3 is the new 2, right? They want families to have more children. And this is a recognition that families with 3 or more children, they will get additional benefits on top of what all other families with children have.
Yeah.
I think the only downside, and I hear some of my, friends, saying is like, oh man, they have 3 kids, but the third child is already close to 6, already 7 years old, right? So they feel they kind of missed out. But I think the point of this initiative is really to encourage, future generations of children, to really, if you have 2, maybe you want to consider the child, we will help you reduce the cost of, of living by having the LifeSG grants as well as Medisave and, additional CDA grants as well for the child.
Correct. Another thing that I think I want to raise is also, we always discuss, what's the ideal number of children to have in a family. And I think one of the things that we actually landed on is that from a government's perspective, it's easier to encourage a family with 2 children already to have a third child, right? Rather than, persuade maybe a DINK, a dual income, no kids family to have their first child,
You're right, because when you look at a married couple with no kids, it's really a personal preference, right? That they don't want to have children. They are married, but they don't have children. So, convincing them to have children, it's maybe,
It might take a large step, right?
I don't think just a large step, but you really are, expecting them to change their perception on how they want to live their lives in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're looking at a family of, with two kids,
Yeah.
like Dinesh down here, he has already shown that propensity that he wants children, he likes children.
Yeah.
So then the question really is, can he afford one more, let's say one more, what will encourage him to have a third child? So I think the government is kind of like taking a stand in terms of having this scheme by saying that, look, we really want Singaporean couples to have, if they have kids, to have 3 or more kids if possible.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the first thing that I'll say is a game changer. The second thing I think, just to add on to the first, is that this is really, in my opinion, the start of the large family scheme. Right. And I will not be surprised at all if within the next 5 years or even sooner than that, that you see it being enhanced constantly as the government receive feedback or there is more ideas of how it can be enhanced to better suit the needs of larger
families. I think one of the things that already come to mind, I don't know whether it will make the cut, but like property, right? You got larger family, you need a larger property, larger space, maybe more rooms to house them as well. I think that's one of the things that, just pop up in my mind.
So now that they have this large family scheme, right, whichever, family that qualifies for it, now the government can, in a way, enhance the scheme in future budget if they want to. So I think to me, that's really a game changer because it acknowledges large family and how they may have some other challenges that, having multiple young children will give them and how, the government can support these families.
Yeah. Before we go on to the next point, right, I want to point out also that even families with or smaller families, right, with 1 or 2 children, they also don't miss out from this budget. They also enjoy a one-off, child LifeSG credits this year. Yeah. For any child from like 0 to 12. I think up to 12 years old, they get the $500 one-off.
Yeah.
And then if you have children from 13 to 20, they get top-ups into their EduSave or PSE, the post-secondary education account. So even smaller families don't miss out. They also like look after in a way.
So 1 or 2 is good, but 3 is better from the government's opinion at least. All right, what's your next game changer?
Okay, my next game changer, I am going to... I put this as my third one, so I'm going to it looks like a little bit of a slip. I'm going to the businesses, right? So corporate income tax rebate of up to 50%, of tax payable in FY 2025. And I think if I saw it in the AXS properly, this is up to $40,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is quite a big number. Yeah. At least headline number.
So just to clarify, so it's 50% off corporate income tax.
Yeah.
Up to 40,000 per company.
And
how many years can you
I think this is for FY 2025.
All right.
So I think maybe it's a one-off. I'm not sure the T's and Z's, but this looks like it's for FY 2025. I'm not sure if they can carry forward anything, right? But it was quite a significant number when I saw the annexes and the actual details. It also helps maybe growing companies to expand a little bit faster, put a little bit of cash flow back in their hands. And another one of the sub-pointers, that PM Wong also mentioned, even if you are a smaller company and you don't have profits or you had only 1 employee during the year, there's a minimum benefit. You get this $2,000 CIT rebate cash grant. So what's that? So all companies benefit from this scheme, even if you don't have any profits.
So even if I'm not paying income tax.
Yeah, correct. So maybe you made a loss in YA 2025, you get some benefits from this scheme. In essence, on the website, it does say that, company who hired 2 local employees, in calendar year 2024, and has a tax payable of $30,000. So what they will receive is, first, the $2,000 CIT rebate cash grant. So that's the minimum they'll receive, right? The minimum benefit they'll receive it first. And then another $13,000, this will come from the 50% of $30,000 in tax payable that they had minus the $2,000 cash benefit. If it's still complicated to you, just go on to the Singapore Budget 2025 website. They have this exact example. We'll probably put it up maybe in some of the notes.
Yes. Corporate income tax can be quite confusing sometimes, as we all know. Right. So that's your second game changer. I have one here which I think is criminally understated in yesterday's budget, and that is the enhancement to workfare skill support schemes, right? So I think one of the things that was noted yesterday by the PM during his speech, we have this thing called the SkillsFuture Level Up Program.
Yes.
But that's only applicable, if you don't already know, for those people who are turning the age of 40. And what it allows you to do is that it allows you to go for a full-time course. I think it's a diploma course. Of course, now it's also available for part-time, but if you go for full-time diploma course, you will have for a 24-month period 50% of your income based on your last 12-month statement.
Yes.
Provided to you as allowance, capped at I think $3,000.
Yeah, so $6,000 salary, so 50% is 3,000.
Yeah, and of course, if you earn more than 6,000, it's still capped at 3,000 because it's 50% of a maximum of $6,000, or rather capped at $3,000. So that it was when you turn 40. But I think yesterday it was introduced that there was be a new scheme to really support even younger workers, but this time it has to be younger, low-wage workers. So I think currently how it works is that lower wage workers currently they can tap on Workfare Skill Support Scheme from the age of 30, but the provision comes in the form of this thing called an absentee payroll support, where workers are given a training allowance of I believe $6.
Yeah, I think $6 sounds like a number I've seen somewhere.
Yeah, so it is currently about $6 per hour from our memory. But moving forward, what is going to happen is that the government will streamline such that it kind of follows the SkillsFuture Level Up program, which starts only at age 40. But when you're at age 30, it starts if you are considered a low-wage worker under the Workfare Skill Support Scheme. So with this, you also get a higher allowance, I believe, in the long term. So this will be 50% of the average income over a 24-month period. So I think this is from age 30 all the way to 39, obviously before you transit to the
main
SkillsFuture Level program. So I think this is a huge game changer because it basically acknowledges the fact that for any low-wage worker in Singapore, if you want to upgrade, take a diploma, for example, any selected full-time course, so it's not just everything, you got to check what those courses are. The government will really support you in terms of ensuring you have allowances because you have 50% of average income over a 12-month period. And I think this was something that was kind of like mentioned during the speech, but no one really did dive into it because I think it really gives that opportunity for any low-wage worker who are Singaporean, age 30 onwards, to really consider enrolling themselves in a full-time course with the prospect of getting a higher salary once they graduate. And this is really a significant support.
Yeah. It's quite significant because they can upgrade their skills even before the main scheme of when they turn 40, right? So this is helping them get to a level where they don't have to wait till 40 to upgrade themselves.
Yeah, and I think more details will be shared, but I believe a lot of these courses that are provided are limited to the polys and ITs.
Yeah.
So it's not really just subsidizing you to take a degree, right? But really on the skill level of poly, diploma, or an IT cert.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that was also mentioned. These are mainly for upgrades if you take long form courses. I think the impetus is for long form courses, no longer those 2-3 day kind of shorter courses, right? Basically a reskilling of yourself.
Longer, more meaningful courses that have a higher chances of really allowing a person to really spend time to upgrade themselves, learn new skills.
I guess now is my turn.
Your last chance.
My last one is a little bit of a cheat, I guess. Okay. You can say it's a cheat because you took my second one, by the way.
All right.
Okay, so my last one is actually, it didn't surprise me, but I was impressed by how much this budget 2025 tried to support all groups of, maybe I consider what maybe PM Wong did say, I can't remember whose idea it was, but vulnerable groups of workers. So he tried to have an overarching support for all vulnerable groups of workers. So I try to just give a few examples of why I thought this was a game changer, right? So I think like you mentioned, there was the low wage support in terms of workfare skills support scheme. So that part we've discussed already is one of these things I wanted to say, but that part is discussed for low wage workers especially. There's a catch-all. Obviously, there was an enhancement to the main SkillsFuture Level Up program, by extending it to even part-time long-form courses, right? So they can get a $300 training grant, training allowance, even if they don't go for it full-time. So I think that was quite nice. It allows people who want to do it part-time to do so as well.
It encourages them, I think that's also important, encourages them to do it.
Yeah, correct. And then other groups are like the senior workers as well, so they will continue getting the next tranche of their CPF top-ups, right? So you'll go ahead. It went through in 2025, so 1st Jan 2025. There was another round of CPF top-ups increment, and then 1st Jan 2026 now, I think the next tranche will go ahead. And I think this has been impetus for quite some time, right? It's quite a number of years to get CPF contributions for senior workers more in line with
all other workers.
Right? All other workers, right? So I think this will go ahead. So it's quite nice that, they were also thought about in this budget. Obviously, the budget component of this will be the employers will get 50% rebate of the extra additional CPF contribution burdens that they have. Right? And then two other groups that, we'll also mention is that, PWDs, so person with disabilities.
Right.
So they were also talked about quite extensively. I think there was like a retirement component where, there was a support if the family members or themselves contribute towards their retirement funds, there'll be like a matching. So I think that's quite nice.
I think this is running on the, quite successful match retirement matching scheme, right?
Yeah.
Some scheme, because I think initially when it was first announced, it was only for people within a certain age group, I think 55 to 60.
Yes. Yeah. So now it's all, right?
Yeah, and I think, you're right. Now it's like 55 and above, because, why should someone with 70 and above not be able to qualify for it if they are eligible?
Yeah.
And then, like going on from next year onwards, people with disability,
correct,
even if
yes,
not yet age 55 can already start to enjoy these benefits. Kind of like a way for, I kind of feel about this as a way where the government kind of test bait it, with a smaller group of Singaporeans, workers, and then when they see that, hey, it's kind of popular, it's actually quite useful to build up the retirement savings for people with less money, their CPF.
Yeah.
They just extend it
to other vulnerable groups. So I thought it was a nice touch that, this group also was thought about. In addition, in terms of, employment opportunities, so employers will also continue to get, wage offsets from the enabling employment credit for those PWDs who earn up to $4,000. So I think $4,000 and below, they get some wage offsets. The employers get some wage offsets. Right? So it encourages employers to employ such persons as well. And the last group I have here, hopefully I don't miss out any other group, but the last group I have here is the ex-offenders. So they similarly have, this uplifting employment credit, where similarly, I think the intention is to reintegrate ex-offenders back into society, make sure no one get left behind. And similarly, employers will get support for hiring ex-offenders earning, $4,000 and below. Right? So I think the overarching message I'm trying to put here is that, all Singaporeans were thought about, and then vulnerable workers were also provided more support. Right? So I think that's a good touch from PM for his first budget. It was his first budget as PM also.
I think quite a good three options you have. I think for my final one is actually LifeSG Credits. I think that's, to me, is the biggest game changer. I know that a lot of parents are now Googling it, figuring, hey, what's this LifeSG? How do I get my money? And, actually for most of us, we NS guys would already know, because LifeSG credit is basically the same credits that we get for NS LifeSG, where you have to download the LifeSG mobile app.
Yes.
And then, I'm not sure if you guys even know, but in your LifeSG mobile app, which you have to download if you want to register your birth cert for your kid nowadays, it's all done through the LifeSG mobile app. And there is a wallet component in the LifeSG mobile app, which is where your NS LifeSG credits are, which is where your future child LifeSG credits will be.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of a game changer, because what's happening now is that the government is actually dispersing some of these vouchers or these credits in different ways, right? So we had the CDC vouchers, which obviously can be used. You can download the vouchers.
Yeah. Not to mention $600 as well in CDC vouchers.
$800, right?
I think $800 for seniors.
Oh, $800 for seniors and $600 for the rest of us, Singaporeans, right? So, that is the CDC vouchers where you download it and then it's on, it's a voucher component, and you just scan it at the stores that has the CDC vouchers eligible that can pay using CDC vouchers. I think the LifeSG credit is a little bit different. It rides on the existing Pay Now Next QR system, right? So for those NS guys, if you did well in your service or really got married somehow when you were serving NS or have a kid, MINDEF will give you, I think, $100 or $200, which you can then use as well. So you already have that amount. In fact, I just checked mine yesterday. I realized I have $200 credit. Luckily, it's expiring end of the year, right? So
I think what if you had some credits already expired?
That's what I was thinking.
Any tranche expired last year.
Yeah, I was wondering. I rather not know, but I think anyway, going forward, I think that's going to be a huge component of for a lot of us with children, because we're going to get that $500 LifeSG credit, and then obviously if you have kids under 6, or if your third child is still under 6, then you will get $1,000 per kid until they from the age of 1 to 6. So I can see a lot of Singaporeans downloading the LifeSG app, making sure that they can access their credit, and obviously in time to come using it to pay through PayNow or Next QR So I think
Yes.
there's one thing that I was wondering, which I don't know whether you have an answer. Like I kind of was wondering, now we have a multiple systems of giving vouchers.
Yeah.
Right? They have the CDC vouchers, you have the LifeSG credit, and in a way, the usage of both credits, I mean, it's kind of similar. You can use it to pay for stuff, and household expenses and merchants accept it. But CDC voucher seems to be more grassroots in nature, right? Where you it's meant to support the neighborhood stores and the mom and pop shops that, in the neighborhood, the heartlands. Whereas the LifeSG credit seems to have a wider range of use because it uses the PayNow UEN system. So I'm just wondering going forward, how the government will decide which place you should give which kind of credit. Or I'm just wondering, maybe they're just testing out both to see which one has a higher adoption rate.
I mean, only they would know the reason, but I think it's not a surprise to me that, there are different forms of payout. So maybe, to me at least, it's meant to be targeted towards, where your expenses may rise. So for example, what I mean is that, when they gave the Medisave top-ups to almost everyone, every adult, right? This is, in line with, MediShield Life premiums going up. Also, maybe certain people might need help in their Medisave accounts. So it's for that reason. When they give CDC voucher, I'm sure everyone rejoices, good thing. But it's mainly to tackle cost of living, right? So you can get your CDC vouchers used at supermarkets, where your groceries are, as well as, heartland shops, including the hawker centers where you buy your food.
Which you need to spend at least 50% of your CDC vouchers on those.
Yeah, so 50-50 at supermarkets and heartland stores plus hawker centers.
So the government want to make sure that at least some of the money is being channeled to support the heartland hawkers and heartland stores, right?
Yeah. And then with LifeSG, I think it's a little bit less constrained. Right? You can spend at more places than one with, like you mentioned, UEN.
Basically a Singapore business.
Yeah.
As long as they're based in Singapore, then they should have a PayNow UEN by now. You can probably spend it there. So I think that gives a wide.
So that seems like the most liquid form of money that you can spend right now.
Yeah, wider range. As long as it's a Singapore company with a UEN, you should be able to spend it there. So I think there is a lot more ways you can use your LifeSG credit, and I think in the years to come you will probably see a lot more dollars going into this LifeSG mobile app, and a lot more parents at least having will be using the mobile app to pay for household expenses.
Actually, come to think of it, I don't know whether extending it beyond it needs to be, but there's also like that ActiveSG $100 top up that we get. So we are getting this top ups or this cash
in different
forms.
Yeah.
Right? Whether we like it or not, it's in different forms. And I think the intention is to spend it in different ways as well.
You're right. So for me, that's the last game changer, the LifeSG credit. Probably a lot of us will be downloading the app soon if we don't already have it, and for figuring out how to spend our money.
Yeah.
So any last words, any last thoughts for the budget?
I think it was a budget that was quite all-inclusive. Like I think major groups of people kind of got support. Yeah. So to me, it's quite inclusive.
The PMO office would love to hear that, I think. And yes, that comes to the end of our discussion today. I'm sure you guys would, agree or maybe even disagree with some of the biggest game changer that, Dinesh and I have mentioned. Feel free to let us know your thoughts. You can drop us a comment, we'll read it. Please, let us know what you think about this year's budget. Was it good for you? Is it as all-encompassing as Dinesh mentioned it to be? And we hope to hear your thoughts. We'll see you again.